Hey friends, welcome to the second weekly Saturday edition of Hot News. Hope you're having a great weekend thus far. We had so much news that we could talk about in yesterday's Hot News. We decided to make our own video on the weekend for it. So let's talk about who's bringing the video to you, and that would be our merch, our holiday merch. My friends, we have the dopest holiday merch. All I want for Christmas is Papa Linus. Santa got my gaming PC at Walmart. I learned to build computers from The Verge. This sweater is ray traced, and finally, the It Just Works Holiday Edition. My friends, this is the dopest, hottest tech merch that you can find on the internet right now, so pick it up at the link in the video description. It's too late to get it for Christmas, but my friends, it's still gonna be winter, okay? Except for not here in South Africa, where it's a blistering 98 degrees out right now, and I'm sweating my butt off. Anyways, with that being said, let's jump on into the hot news. First up, we've got some good news about Nvidia before we get to the bad news. The first good news is that deep learning super sampling is now in Final Fantasy 15, which we already reported on, but now we have some benchmarks from Tech Power Up, which kind of shows some really dang decent performance improvements, not just like when you compare it to anti-aliasing, but this is the thing I wanted to know. If you have no anti-aliasing, is DLSS faster? And the answer appears to be yes. And then you also get a lot more detail, especially in the bricks on this first shot that they give us on their website. The detail difference is staggering. Like, this is gorgeous. And you go from having no anti-aliasing, getting 56 FPS to 67 FPS at 4K. Quite a decent improvement. It looks like deep learning super sampling is everything Nvidia cracked it up to be, and I'm kind of excited for it. Speaking of other good news about Nvidia and things to be excited for, Metro Exodus, which is the latest game in the Metro series, has gone gold, which means it's ready to ship and go out to consumers, which is kind of early, especially since it's supposed to come out late February. Well, it turns out because they've gone gold so early, they're actually going to be shipping it a week early. And this is supposed to be one of the flagship titles for RTX technology with ray tracing and deep learning super sampling. And it looks like we're getting it sooner than anticipated, which is the exact opposite narrative of everything that's been happening with all of Nvidia's new technology. So well done to 4A Games and Deep Silver for getting this done early. Dang, I'm impressed. But you know who's not impressed? Nvidia shareholders. So let's go ahead and talk about the title piece of today, which is that Nvidia stock has absolutely collapsed in about 2 months, going from its all-time high peak of around $290 to just under $150 right now, collapsing nearly 50% in just under 2 months. There's a lot of different explanations for why this is going to happen, and it comes to the fact that it's the stock market. People choose to sell and buy and all that kind of stuff. But there are some key factors that have really influenced it. One is primarily a lot of people indicate that Nvidia stock was just always overpriced. It should have never been near $300 because one, it was riding on the whole crypto wave. Nvidia wasn't actually always going to have these types of sales that were indicating that their profits were massive because the crypto boom was going to be over. And we're seeing this in companies like Bitmain, who have had to shut down certain offices because they bet so hard on cryptocurrency mining that they no longer can keep up with the checks that they signed basically when they were in the peak of the boom. And we've talked a dozen times about how Nvidia did bet wrong on mining. They didn't produce when they needed to at first to keep prices high, and they overproduced at the end, which led to an overstock of 10 series cards and made it so that they didn't actually want us to buy the 20 series, and the only way they could sell both at the same time was to keep the 20 series especially high. And all of that has led to shareholders not being happy with Nvidia because they missed their Q3 targets as far as how many cards they were supposed to sell, which made sense because people are not in the interest of buying graphics cards at this point, especially since Nvidia is not dropping their prices, which they wouldn't drop their prices if they can't meet profit targets. Like, it's just this vicious circle. And then there is also the fact that consumers just aren't really happy with Nvidia right now. The stunts that they pulled with the RTX card, the prices that they're trying to charge for the technology, and the things that they've actually been able to deliver on has made the customer base rather unsettled. And there's a lot of talk and a lot of mind share typically going to AMD at this point, not more than a majority than goes to Nvidia, but it definitely, at least in the comments of all of our videos that we've had, it does seem like more and more people are indicating that they are getting fed up with Nvidia, and that appears to be rattling the shareholders because they want to have a safe investment. And then thirdly, the trade war between the US and China appears to be causing some issues when it comes to sales and the future sales of Nvidia products, so that doesn't give shareholders very much confidence. But this isn't just the only thing that's supposed to be happening. It's not just the fact that Nvidia's stock price has fallen nearly 50%. If it was overpriced anyways, this was about to happen. The real kicker comes from the reports that their fourth largest shareholder, which is SoftBank, is preparing to sell a $4 billion stake in the company because they're not meeting their expectations. The deal isn't currently finalized, but according to Bloomberg, this is something that they are heavily looking into because they don't feel like Nvidia is going to put things in place that are going to correct the loss that they've had thus far, making the investment not as profitable as they would want it to be, but it looks like they're going to walk away with $3 billion in profit from the exchange in the first place because of different put options that they have, which is a whole complicated thing that I'm not going to get into here. The whole point of this story is that Nvidia is in a rough time with how much it's worth and how much it's going to continue to be worth, especially if investors are pulling out like this. And this is a lot of things that we've talked about here on the channel. When you don't prioritize customers properly, your company is not worth as much. And people say this is capitalism, it's all about business and it's all about making sales, but you have to appease the people that you're selling to in order to continue to drive sales. That's one of the reasons Apple is also falling into the issues, because they're still not providing the value that customers have come to expect from the company. Nvidia did give us value when it came to the 10 series. Nvidia did do a lot of good things, and now when the 20 series comes out, they've kind of left us in the dust and people don't feel like they're actually delivering on what they should be, and that leads to unsettlement and instability. And it's complicated, and obviously losing stock value doesn't necessarily mean that the company is not going to have money or be able to actually work on things, but it might be a good indication that Nvidia maybe isn't on the right path with how they continue to approach how they treat their customers, and that's how I feel about it as well. But let's not just talk about Nvidia bad news. Let's talk about AMD bad news, because their senior vice president of Radeon Technologies Group, not Jim Anderson, because he already left. This other one, Mike Rayfield, he retires. Although there is some speculation behind the scenes talking about how maybe his retirement actually isn't a retirement, and really he just became disillusioned with the company and Lisa Su's leadership, especially when it came to the GPU department, and it didn't really lead to him wanting to be at the company any longer. However, this is coming from WCCF Tech, so we have to take this with as much grain of salt as you think it's due for this one particular site. But the big news here is that a second senior vice president of Radeon Technologies Group has quit within about 6 months. That's really bad, especially after Raja Koduri has already left to Intel. It kind of feels like RTG is just falling apart at the seams. If you're interested in reading the behind the scenes about what's going on with Mike Rayfield and the things that he did, such as pitching Radeon 7, which was to be a Vega 20 based consumer facing part that cost $750 to build and could barely compete with the 1080 Ti. It was going to cost $750 to build. So they're using that as an indication that maybe he didn't have the best beat on the company and wasn't the greatest. AMD, when they were contacted for a statement, did say that Mike's retirement has nothing to do with his performance, nothing to do with his attitude, and that he was just retiring to spend more time with his family, and that they wish him all the best. So there's two different sides coming out. We don't know which one's real. I'm going to actually probably lean towards the AMD statement at this point, because it does feel like we could just kind of get on the hype train of wanting to hate on AMD, but regardless of why Mike Rayfield is retiring, the fact that they're losing so much senior leadership in the company is not usually good for a company's long-term health or even short-term gains. So Navi is going to have to be something especially good for anybody, for them to actually come out of this, in my opinion. They're going to have to pull a rabbit out of their butt. And while we're talking about people leaving companies, it appears that ASUS's CEO has resigned to go ahead and take over an AI company that ASUS is going to invest in, but it seems that with this step down of ASUS's CEO, they're going to be moving on to a more co-CEO type structure, so that they can have two people leading who have various strengths to hopefully bring the company into the next decade, which this seems kind of good. It's interesting to see where ASUS might change their direction, or if they will at all, and that'll be starting on January 1st, that his resignation is effective. Speaking of more senior leadership in companies, Huawei's CFO, who was arrested in Canada last week, has now posted bail to the tune of $7.5 million, which, considering her father is the owner of Huawei and is a billionaire, maybe just kind of chump change. However, the US, because the whole reason this is happening is because Huawei is selling products to Iran, and then the Canadian officials arrested her to extradite her to the US to face prosecution in the US, whereas China is claiming that this is just a trade war stunt, that this is a PR move to get ahead on the trade war that's going on between the US and China. Not really my place to talk about it, but the US did fear that she would be a flight risk to go back to China, so they didn't want her to post bail. However, bail has been set at $7.5 million. It has been paid. However, it came with the conditions that, one, she must surrender her passport, she has to wear a GPS tracking device, and be accompanied by a security detail whenever she leaves her residence. Pretty intense stuff. Let's move on to something less intense. which is more China spying claims. So if you remember, a couple of months ago, Bloomberg posted a report that China had embedded chips onto some of Supermicro's boards to spy on companies that use these boards, namely Apple and Amazon. Apple, Amazon, and Supermicro all vehemently denied these claims, and it appears that Supermicro has gone ahead with a third-party investigator to come and check out all of their boards that are currently on sale, as well as boards that were sold to Apple and Amazon, and they found no evidence of any chip that might compromise the security of these boards. So it's kind of Bloomberg versus Supermicro stance right now. Bloomberg still hasn't retracted their statement. They're saying they're sticking by it, but it does seem like many companies are saying, no, technologically, there's nothing here. We'll have to see how this plays out, if Bloomberg retracts their statement or if anything continues to develop. We'll make sure to keep you updated on hot news. And now let's talk about something a little bit more lighthearted, which is in 2018 alone, video games on YouTube have been viewed for over 50 billion hours, which is an insane amount. It boggles the mind to think how could that even be possible. That was a quote given by Ryan Watt, who is the global head of gaming and VR content and partnership at YouTube Gaming. One of the things that he did say in his interview that really intrigued me was the fact that they are really focusing on video on demand, and it kind of makes it seem like live streaming for YouTube Gaming might be dead in the eyes of the senior leadership at YouTube and not something that they're gonna really push going forward, which means Twitch is the preeminent live streaming platform at this point. And anybody who says Mixer should be considered, go fly a kite. But more YouTube staggering numbers news. In Q3 of 2018, they took down over 58 million videos in just one quarter. Not only that, they took down 224 million comments. It doesn't seem like any of the videos that YouTube pulled down really got any traction. They're quoting that hundreds of thousands of them barely had less than 10 views. So they're not pulling down big videos, they're just pulling down videos that violate their terms of service, that have extremist content, that are violent or contain nudity. So there you go. And then finally, AMD Ryzen 3000 leaks. We got more of them. Except for it's the U series processors that go in laptops, and HP apparently has a model out on the internet floating out there that kind of shows us that it's just Zen Plus with some new Vega stuff. And it's kind of cool, but at the same time, it's nothing really new. I'll leave a link in the video description for you to check out the specs. Basically, it goes from 2 cores, 4 threads, all the way up to 4 cores and 8 threads with some Vega components on it. So it's laptop GPUs and CPUs. What do you want? Not the big, exciting Ryzen 3000 with 16 cores and 5 gigahertz. That's still a ways off. Anyways, that's gonna wrap it up for hot news today. Let me know what you think of anything that we talked about down in the comments down below. Don't forget that this video is brought to you by our merch. Pick it up at the link in the video description. It's only gonna be here for a little bit and then it's gonna be gone. Don't regret it for next holiday season, especially next winter. You're gonna want All I Want for Christmas is Pop-A-Line when Christmas rolls around next year, and you know it, so pick it up. Anyways, hit the like button, hit the video, smack the screen of your computer and hit the like button. If you enjoyed the video, get subscribed to stay up to date on all of our tech-related content. I'm Brett with the UFD Tech Channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see your smiling faces again in the next video. Love you too.